and we have made it to the final phase that is open. So let's get into it. Hello everybody, welcome back to the MrEliMac show. Pitch This! I am your host, MrEliMac, and today I'm going to be doing the final part of the entire What If the MCU Was the DCCU, which was inspired by Hector Navarro and his friends when they came up with this little thought experiment. We have now gotten to the point where Hector and his friends didn't really do more with this because at the time when they were creating it, Phase 4 had not come out, so it was sort of an unspoken territory. There were a few things that he was able to do and his friends were able to do, but for the majority of this is very much me coming up with my own idea of what would be happening. So if you like all the ideas that I have here in this video, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Also hit the notification bell, that way you can be notified whenever a new Pitch This video comes your way. So let's get into Phase 4 of the DCCU. So we're gonna start off with how the release was actually done because COVID happened, a lot of things were rearranged, so I'm gonna keep the things how it was rearranged instead of how it was supposed to be, because when it was supposed to be, Black Widow was supposed to come out first, but instead of going that way, I'm gonna do how it was actually released in the real world. So the first one that was released was WandaVision, and for the replacement of WandaVision, it is Meet the Martian, where this is the one story where the main character is Martian Manhunter John Jones, and it will continue to have the identity that WandaVision had, whereas it is set in sort of a sitcom style and different forms of sitcoms, especially in the very first episode being set in the 50s, because that's when Martian Manhunter, I believe, was created in the 1950s, so we're going to go with that vibe. And so it will be set in sort of an area where the entire world is, or not the entire world, the city is put into the sitcom vibe, but we will have characters such as Mariah Jones and Kim Jones, who were the analogs of John's dead wife and child, and they sort of exist, and it's sort of the, oh, meet the Martian, oh, we have to hide that we are Martian, so comedy ensues in that. And also we're getting the character of Dr. Saul Erdel, who would be a supporting character in this sort of sitcom vibe, and also another major supporting character would be Malachi Jones, who is very much based off of Malavaak, who is the twin brother to John Jones. But that's all sort of in the sitcom world. In the outside world, we would have characters such as Lieutenant Etta Candy sort of being a major supporting character, her coming back from the Wonder Woman story. And we would also sort of reveal that there is some sort of magic happening in this little area, and we would get the assistance of a character that we would introduce in sort of the Netflix universe. If you ever want me to touch on that, post it in the comments down below. But we would get the character of Rachel Roth, aka Raven. And we would also have another character that would sort of exist in the sphere as a character inside of that universe that was created, but also someone that wasn't a imagination that was created from the ether, and that would be Megan Morse, who would be sort of casted as the niece of John Jones, but as everyone knows, Megan Morse is Miss Martian, so we would have the Miss Martian character in this as well. And throughout the entire story, we would have the idea of Malachi Jones as sort of the main antagonist, sort of like how in WandaVision it was Agatha all along. And we would have it to where we think that he was the one that created all this, that is sort of attacking John's brain. But the big reveal would be that John, with his growing telepathic powers, he was the one that created this all, and him sort of, again, filling the Wanda role in this. And so by the end of it, we would have Malavaak and Martian Manhunter doing a big battle, ultimately with Miss Martian and Raven working, sort of helping and working together and defeating the bad guys on the outside, who would be led by Daryl Wessel, who in the Martian Manhunter sort of post-New 52, pre-Rebirth era of this is one of the characters that John Jones created. But instead of him being an alternate identity, I'm making him sort of like the leader of a shady organization, maybe checkmate of the background. And that sort of, we defeat Malava, and he goes away for a bit, but then John Jones and Martian Manhunter goes off to do his own thing and learn more about what was happening. Because I also want to hint that the way that John was able to do all this was due to Martian magic that he was able to tap into that he didn't realize he could. And so that's the WandaVision analog. And then we get into the Falcon and Winter Soldier analog, which in my universe is Nightwing and Batgirl, because this entire story would be Nightwing very much not wanting to be the next Batman, and though he would be that way, we would have the character of Scarecrow sort of starting to do evil deeds, sort of the flag smasher of it. But we would also get the reveal of someone already just taking the mantle up and being more of a violent Batman, a Batman that's not afraid to kill people. And the big reveal for that would be that it's actually Jason Todd coming back from the dead, and we would get the Red Hood sort of thing there. And then the Batroc the Leaper character would be Deadshot in this, where Scarecrow is sort of having hired Deadshot and sort of helping him like do all of his nefarious means. But then we would get the Torres character, the Joaquin Torres character from Falcon and the Winter Soldier, who would later become Falcon, who is about to become Falcon in Captain America New World Order, and that would be Tim Drake, and that would be how we would start hinting at a new Robin, where Dick Grayson would be Nightwing, and we would have Tim Drake as the Robin character. And the Rhodey character, who would just come in for an episode and then go away, would be Wally West. He would be coming in, sort of talk to Dick about how he's starting to realize he's getting powers and stuff, and telling him, hey, not worry, you're going to be a great Batman, don't worry about it, even though the entire time Dick Grayson would be like, I don't want to be Batman. And so then the Baron Zemo character would very much be Two-Face. Two-Face would be sort of the character that's hesitantly helping Nightwing this entire time, even though those two have a very bad history with each other, which I would show in flashbacks, because a lot of the missions that Nightwing had gone on were very much off-screen. And so another character that would be in it would be the Power Broker character, the one that's was Sharon Carter. That would be Talia, hinting at sort of the League of Assassins as well. And then the sort of major thing would be the Valentina Allego de Fontaine character, which that would be Amanda Waller, hinting at Suicide Squad in the future as she would take in Deadshot. And then we would move on to Loki, the show, which would be Black Adam, because I would have a scene in the Power of Shazam movie of Black Adam disappearing, and we would get the big reveal that the version of Black Adam that we see in Power of Shazam isn't actually our Earth's version of Black Adam. The version of Black Adam that we see is actually a version of Black Adam from an alternate Earth, and that's why everyone's like, oh, this is weird that you're here, because the version of Black Adam that's supposed to exist on this Earth is gone. The version of Black Adam that exists on this Earth is gone, and somehow Black Adam exists, so you're not from this Earth, you're from another Earth. And with this, we're sort of having Black Adam go on escapades throughout the multiverse, with Scandal Savage sort of being the major leader of this multiversal force, and sort of Osiris and Isis, who are from the alternate Earth that Black Adam is originally from. They're sort of helping him, trying to run away from this organization. And then we would get the reveal of, in the final episode, of Mobius. But we would only see them as Mobius, as sort of like the leader of this version of the TVA, for lack of a better term. And Mobius would very much be like, oh, so you're just going through the multiverse. You can't do that. There's something greater than what you're doing right now, and it's about to happen, and a version of me is going to be doing it. And that's when we get sort of a minor reveal of the big story at the end of this saga, of this multiverse saga. And Mobius, if you all are not aware, Mobius is another name for the Anti-Monitor, and that's sort of how we start hinting at that story. And then ultimately Black Adam is able to get away, even though Osiris and Isis aren't able to go with him. And then we set up sort of stuff that's going to be happening in season 2, with Black Adam continuing to be on the run from our version of the TVA. And so we move on to the first actual movie, which will be the analog for Black Widow, which is Black Canary, because Black Canary is now having a film of her own. and we would deal with a threat from her mother's past, Dinah Drake. We would have a threat from her past very much coming back into the forefront, which is Dollmaker. And Dollmaker would be very much a threat that has returned to the city that her mother originally was fighting, and Dinah would have to team up with a person named Sin, who was someone from Dinah Lance's past when they were younger, and then that's sort of the Natasha and Yelena story right there. And then Ted Grant, Wildcat, would also be a major force to help, which is the Red Guardian analog. Again, Black Dinah Drake, Dinah Lance's mom, she would be in it. Again, the Melina Vostokov, that's her name, that analog. And then Dollmaker is very much the Dracoff, but then there is a more physical threat known as Dollhouse, and she would be the physical threat that Black Canary is having to face, being the Taskmaster analog. But instead of having a different sort of character for Thunderbolt Ross, instead it is Amanda Waller, who is being put into the forefront as sort of the leader of Checkmate. And so that is sort of the story, and sort of the post-credit scene, the post-credit scene is Amanda Waller starting to put together her own, trying to put together Task Force X. Hence why her appearance in Nightwing and Batgirl, which will later be turned into Batman and Batgirl, hence sort of the same how the Falcon and the Winter Soldier title became Captain America and the Winter Soldier. So putting all those pieces together. And then we get the What If analog, which is Elseworlds. And Elseworlds would sort of work the same way that What If would be, which each episode is a different Earth of the multiverse, which to give like each episode, which in the What If episode, it was what if Captain Carter was basically the first Avenger, and this one is what if Lois Lane was the last daughter of Krypton. That's that story. And what if T'Challa was Star-Lord? What if Virgil Hawkins was the Green Lantern? What if the Earth's mightiest heroes weren't assembled? Basically the same way, and that's sort of how the story. Ultimately, it would deal, the final big boss of it would be Brainiac. What if Brainiac had won? And then it would be the Monitor. Instead of Uatu the Watcher, it is the Monitor, who would sort of be the main sort of character of What If. And then we move on to Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, which his analog would be Blue Beetle and the Ancient Scarab. And Blue Beetle would very much be a Latino hero who would find, or the Scarab would get onto him and he would get the Blue Beetle armor. And his entire thing is trying to run away from a character like Brutale, who would be the analog to Razorfist, who is working for a character known as La Dama, who is the Mandarin analog in this movie. And so the entire time it's Blue Beetle trying to find out more about the Scarab, and also trying to find a character known as Ted Kord. Ted Kord had been someone that was doing a lot of research on the Scarab, and the Scarab disappeared from him, and so this is the entire story basically is Jaime Reyes trying to get to Ted Kord to learn more about the Scarab that is on him and that is using him as sort of a vessel. And then we ultimately get the big fight, which is Blue Beetle versus La Dama, after she had discovered some technology that was very similar to the Scarab. And then good guys win, the end, and sort of the mid-credit scene is Blue Beetle and Ted Kord talking more, and then Ted Kord sort of saying, hey, there's something more alien about this Scarab than there is something magical and mystical, and we need to do some more info lore on that. And then the post-credit scene is sort of an ancient alien race, which would later be revealed as the Reach, and we would get hints at the Reach. And then we move on to the Eternals analog, which is, of course, New Gods. And in New Gods, Big Barda would sort of be the main character, and it's all about the New Gods trying to get more acclimated with Earth, and we would discover later that Highfather would have been killed, which would lead more into them trying to find the final remaining threat of Apocalypse after a majority of Apocalypse had been wiped out from the Justice League Rebirth, which that person would be Steppenwolf. And Steppenwolf would be someone that's just trying to eliminate all of the New Gods, but then it would be revealed that a character named Astor, aka Infinity Man, is actually the big bad the entire time. We would get that reveal, and then it would be just some of the new gods, mainly Big Barda, Mr. Miracle, and mainly those two, trying to fight off Infinity Man, whereas the other new gods are trying to fight off Steppenwolf, and then good guys win, yay. And sort of, see, for Phase 4, for at least this one, it's so much harder to set up the post-credit scenes, especially, like, me trying to find a way to match everything when it's very difficult. Mainly the main post-credit scene that we all need to be aware about in this one is that the character who I have put in this as Michael Holt, who in the comics is known as Mr. Terrific, would be beginning to create his things known as the T-Spheres. And then that's when we would start getting more hints at stuff for the future, mainly to start setting up more for Justice Society. And then we move on to the Hawkeye analog, which is Green Arrow, which would mainly be Green Arrow saving someone known as Mia Dearden, and then Mia Dearden would start wanting to work more with Green Arrow, and her basically following him the entire time. And sort of the main antagonist of this would be a Constantine Dracon, who is actually working for the bigger bad, which again, because a lot of these characters from the Netflix shows nowadays are coming back into the Phase 4, sort of the Kingpin analog from those Netflix shows is Roland Desmond's version of Blockbuster, the second Blockbuster, who is a major crime boss in Bloodhaven, and he's sort of the Kingpin analog, and he's the bigger bad, and we have other bad guys that Green Arrow and Mia Dearden would be fighting against, like William Talkman, again Constantine Dracon, Carrie Cutter, Eddie Fires, China White, and yeah, those would sort of be the major threats of it. And we'd even have the character of Roy Harper in it, and we would sort of start hinting that maybe before Mia Dearden, Green Arrow had another sort of sidekick of his own, and that was Roy Harper, who now goes by Arsenal. And then that would sort of be the main thing for that show. And then we move on to Spider-Man No Way Home's analog, which is Shazam and the Seven Magic Lands, which I would later hint that the Seven Magic Lands are actually seven different major, seven different Earths that the main antagonist, Mr. Mind, is trying to take power from, and sort of start taking over just trying to take over the multiverse. There, it's done, simple. And Mr. Mind put together his own evil league, which is consisting of King Cole, Mr. Atom, Ogar, and Baron Krieger, who Baron Krieger in the comics is also known as Captain Nazi. And so those are sort of like the big bads of this movie. And this would also be the movie where Shazam is getting help from Dr. Fate, Khalid Nassour, but then we would also get Captain Marvel from Earth 5, which Earth 5 in the multiverse is the Thunderworld, where Captain Marvel is sort of the main character and sort of the main hero of this Earth. And then we would also get the Captain Marvel of Earth 22, which Earth 22 in the comics is the Kingdom Come universe. And that I would very much want to pull from those actual multiverses from the comics. That way we can create sort of more of that. And that's sort of the Shazam and the Seven Magic Lands. It's all of the versions of Shazam coming together, especially with the Shazam family coming together and beat Mr. Mind and his evil team. And so yeah, we move on to the Moon Knight analog, which is Etrigan the Demon, because I really like the idea of having a character like Etrigan who has two separate personalities very much, Jason Blood and Etrigan the Demon, and forcing them to sort of like that. Sort of like with Moon Knight, how there are DID in that movie, and I would sort of want to use that for Etrigan the Demon as well. And the main threat there is that he's trying to beat someone known as, I want to say it is either Hakud or Johnny Basterson. I'm looking at the list of characters that I have for Etrigan the Demon. I want to say it's one of those two. I think it's mainly Johnny Basterson. And he's just trying to defeat him because Johnny Basterson is trying to do evil stuff. But we would also have appearances from a character like Daniel Cassidy, who in the comics is Blue Devil, and Blackbriar Thorn. Those would sort of be major characters in this movie, or in this show. And good guys win, and then we start hinting more at, trust me, a lot of the magical characters I'm sort of hinting at for the future in sort of a maybe Justice League Dark movie, because I really want to do Justice League Dark in this phase of the multiverse. And then we move on to Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness's analog, which is Dr. Fate and the Crisis on Multiple Earths. Now, I'm not making this Crisis on Infinite Earths, which is the big storyline, but Crisis on Multiple Earths is very much the very first time in comics where we started getting more than one Earth, where we saw Earth 1 and Earth 2 meeting for the first time, sort of with the Justice League meeting the Justice Society, and that's sort of where we're going with this. And the main plot is Dr. Fate is trying to stop Martian Manhunter, who Martian Manhunter started to develop his telepathy more and more, especially with the Martian magic that he's discovered, and sort of Martian Manhunter has sort of become a big bad in this movie, and it's very much Martian Manhunter wanting his family again, sort of like how Wanda wanted her family back. That's sort of where we're going with this, and it's very much Dr. Fate getting stuck on Earth 20, which in the multiverse book that I have, Earth 20 is very much sort of a pulp era heroes that like that, and sort of I would use that aesthetic, and also someone that is helping, sort of the America Chavez character that is helping Dr. Fate, and Martian Manhunter really wants to force all this, is Tracy 13. She would be a major supporting character in this movie, and we would sort of get the DC version of the Illuminati as well, because that exists. DC has their own version of the Illuminati, and that's sort of what I would use, but I would use it differently than the characters from that comic. Instead, I would use characters such as Dr. Niles Calder of Earth 20, who is the chief from Doom Patrol. We would use Superwoman from, not from the show, not from the Elseworlds show, but Earth 20's Superwoman, Lois Lane. Angela Marcy, who was a supporting character in Zatanna, and sort of she's the Zatanna of this Earth. Cosmic Boy, Rock Kryn of Earth 20, who, again, if you were to follow, again, the Legion of Superheroes is very much my Inhumans analog, and Mr. Terrific Michael Holt of Earth 20, and he's sort of the Mr. Fantastic analog, even though, again, I showed a version of Michael Holt in Eternals. This is an alternate version, and Wotan would also be a member of this version, and then we would just show Martian Manhunter just killing everyone. We would have that Illuminati scene, but it's Martian Manhunter killing everyone. Ultimately, it would have Dr. Fate winning, trying to speak to the goodness that is inside Martian Manhunter, and Martian Manhunter would be defeated, and Tracy 13 would begin her training in the Tower of Fate and start her training to improve her magic abilities, because of course there is a Tower of Fate and they do train magic people. And then we move on to the Miss Marvel analog, which would be Amethyst. And I know everyone knows Amethyst Princess of Gemworld. She is not typically a person of color. I would make her a person of color if I were to do this version of the What If the MCU was the DCCU. I would put Amethyst, Amy Winston, as a person of color, and we would have characters like her major supporting characters would be Tom Brooks and Naomi McDuffie, and we would have her parents there. Cassie Sandsmark would also make her debut, sort of hinting more at the Young Justice characters. Again, I'm also sort of pushing Young Justice as well, since I already had in my Netflix universe like the Teen Titans characters. Now we're getting closer to Young Justice, and sort of one of the main characters would be Carnelian, who is a character from Gemworld, and so would be Lady Mordial, who are the Gemworld characters, and Dr. Glory is a major antagonist. But we would also be introduced to two other major heroes, sort of like how Red Dagger was introduced in Miss Marvel. These two characters are sort of other major heroes, and that would be Jaina and Zan, who are the Wonder Twins, again, pushing more towards Young Justice. And Amethyst would be a major character of magic in this world, because I'm trying to get ready for the Marvels, and the Marvels is very much not going to be is going to sort of be a magic movie instead of a cosmic movie, because I'm just replacing some cosmic stuff with magic stuff, because DC does a whole lot more magic stuff than Marvel does. Marvel does a lot of cosmic stuff, so I'm trying to find the balance there. And so we move on to the Thor Love and Thunder analog, which is Wonder Woman, Love is a Battlefield. And if you're wondering, yes, Love is a Battlefield is actually a title of one of her trade paperbacks. And when I saw that, I was like, yes. And so it is Wonder Woman going up against the character known as Grail, who was a character that was introduced during Darkseid War. And I would hint that she is a character that is connected to Apocalypse, but also her own character. But we would also get this movie to see Nubia as Wonder Woman. Sort of been hinting at that for a while, but then because Thor Love and Thunder had the Mighty Thor with Jane Foster, this is the one where we see Nubia becoming Wonder Woman, and we also get Donna Troy as a supporting character. We get Artemis, and those would be sort of the main supporting characters, but then we introduce Tupa. So Tupa is a Brazilian god because I want to start hinting at Yara Flor, who is the Wonder Woman of, like, the Amazon, like literally Amazon in Brazil, and so I want to start hinting at that and push that forward because Yara Flor would very much be the Hercules when we get the post-credit scene with that. And so we have, Wonder Woman beats Grail, we're moving on, and I would sort of retire Diana as sort of our Wonder Woman and start pushing Nubia as our new Wonder Woman. And so we move on to the She-Hulk Attorney at Law analog, which would be The Flash Born to Run. And The Flash Born to Run is the trade paperback that fully introduces Wally West as the Flash, and so that's sort of what this story is. Because the Flash movie was the Incredible Hulk analog, the She-Hulk TV show is The Flash, is another Flash analog. And so it's Wally West starting to get sort of the rhythm of being a superhero. It is also a comedy because Wally West is very much more of the comedic Flash that everyone knows. And sort of the Titania character is a character known as Frankie Kane, aka Magenta. The Hulk character, like the Bruce Banner character, is Jay Garrick's version of the Flash. We have a lot of supporting characters like Linda Park, Chester P. Runk. We have his parents, and sort of the Abomination character is Trickster. We start putting James Jesse. It's Trickster as more of a supporting character. Jesse Chambers or Jesse Quick, she becomes a major supporting character. And then we have villains like the Royal Flush Gang, King, Queen, Jack, Ace, and 10. They're sort of the wrecking crew. We have another character like Marcus Aurelius, Alpha Centurion. He gets introduced. The Turtle is in it. Rainbow Raider, Folded Man, Girder, Man Missile. These are all sort of villains that just appear that Wally has to fight. But a major supporting character, sort of like the Daredevil that pops in, is Cyborg. Because Cyborg is a major character in the Netflix stuff. And so I'm almost getting all of them. Because I have Raven, Nightwing, of course, was a major part of that Netflix stuff, and Cyborg. I only have 2 more that I need to introduce. And when we get there, we're going to get there, and we're going to have all of our Netflix shows from the version that I was in. We're going to have them in this sort of main stuff. But yeah, it's sort of just Wally becoming the Flash and sort of like his first few weeks as the Flash and get people ready for this new version of the Flash. And so then we move on to a Halloween special, the Werewolf by Night special, the Werewolf by Night analog, which is Swamp Thing, which is just Swamp Thing just trying to get away and beat Nick Necro. And sort of major supporting characters that are in this are John Constantine, Abby Arcane, Deadman, Madame Xanadu, and Black Orchid. Again, I'm getting ready. This is a mini Justice League Dark thing, and I'm pushing for it. I'm ready to do Justice League Dark. And I have an idea of where to put Justice League Dark, but again, I'm not going to fully say what that is yet because they need to fix up what they're doing there with their stuff. And so it's Swamp Thing beating Nick Necro and doing some horror stuff. So yeah, that's what that is. And then we move on to the Black Panther Wakanda Forever analog, which is Static Shock Milestone. And Static Shock Milestone is very much introducing a lot of the Milestone characters like Rocket, Icon, Hardware. We're getting that Milestone universe into this grander scheme of the DCCU. And then the main antagonist is Leonard Smalls, aka Pyre, and I'm choosing the name Pyre because the other name is Holocaust. So he's sort of the main antagonist of this film, being teamed up with Quai and Aqua Maria, who were Blood Syndicate. They're members of the Blood Syndicate, and they're sort of like the major antagonists. Ultimately, in the end, it deals with Virgil Hawkins, Static Shock, able to beat the Blood Syndicate without killing any of them. Unlike how in the first one, Eben would die, and this one it's like none of the Blood Syndicate dies. Instead, it's sort of getting them closer to being redeemed and sort of getting them closer to being major, not heroic characters, but keeping them in like an anti-hero type spot for the Blood Syndicate, because the Blood Syndicate, I believe, I'd have to do my research again and people can correct me in the comics, I believe they were more of an anti-hero team in the Milestone comics. Again, if you know better, then you can correct me than I know right now, but that would sort of be the story with that, and setting up Milestone and getting Milestone ready to sort of be a preeminent part of the DC Cinematic Universe. And then we end Phase 4 of the DCCU with the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special analog, which is the Green Lantern Corps Holiday Special, and I'm very much keeping a lot of the major plot of John Stewart is sad because his best friend Barry Allen has died, and it's up to Kilowog and Arisia Robb to try to make him feel better, and they're going to be stealing an actor, and the actor that they are stealing, or kidnapping, is Robert Downey Jr., because I just want to have someone in the MCU in this and sort of like doing a little tongue-in-cheek thing of, hey, MCU, whoop, putting them over here, and they're just going to be playing themselves. And that's sort of what this entire thing is, just them kidnapping Robert Downey Jr. and saying, hey, look, here's an actor that you like, and then John Stewart being like, you just kidnap a person, no. And then that's sort of the story, the little Christmas holiday thing and making people feel special. Simon Baz really doesn't celebrate Christmas, but they are able to find a way to get him to celebrate the holiday that he celebrates. And, trying to make this more than just a Christmas special, make it more of a holiday special, and have it celebrating all the holidays that entail within this time period. And yeah, that was Phase 4 of the DC Cinematic Universe. I tried to speed through this because the last video with Phase 3 was very long just because of my description of Justice League Rebirth, and I wanted this to be at least mildly under 50 minutes. So yeah, what were your thoughts on Phase 4? Again, I sped through it so that it wouldn't be as long, but also there are a lot of stuff that I mildly wanted to talk about, and also there are a lot of specific ideas for each of these projects that I don't really have fully thought of. I just have, here's what they do. This is the movie. These are characters that are in it. Good guys beats the bad guys, and we're moving on. And Martian Manhunter is a villain that will eventually maybe get redeemed. Who knows? So again, this is the final part of the little saga that I've created. I'm not going to be talking about Phase 5 or Phase 6 because those projects have not officially come out yet, and Phase 5 and Phase 6 are not done. I think you all can sort of assume what's going to be happening with all this. Even with Black Adam, me mentioning Mobius and what the character is in the DC Cinematic Universe, you can all sort of guess what the sort of final films of the multiverse saga, of the DC Cinematic Universe's version of the multiverse saga is. So whatever your thoughts are, please hit the like buttons and subscribe to the channel. That way you can be up to date with all the videos I have here on the channel. Also hit the notification bell. That way you can be notified whenever a new video like this comes your way. If you have any suggestions for pitch videos in the future, please post them in the comments down below, because January is going to be weird because I need to reorient my brain away from this. But with all that being said, I've been Mr. EliMac, you've been the audience, and I hope you all have a great rest of the day.